Having spoken with Jeff, I've decided to create his Notion space inside of Obsidian. Now, I'm not saying this is how I use Obsidian or how I would suggest you use Obsidian. This is more of a proof of concept and how I would build someone's Notion space inside of Obsidian. This is the vault that I build later on in this video. You can see we've got the Indify embed at the top of the canvas view. Then on the left side, I have a tasks card looking at a heading section where I can edit the tasks. I can change the priority on tasks and it automatically changes them in the sort order. I can then go to the tomorrow view, change any of the date information in any of the tasks. I can add a new task with a button at the top, add a due date with natural language date, so tomorrow, and then I'm going to add the task name, add the priority, and it will add the task in today's date, but it's due tomorrow, so it shows in tomorrow's section. You can see I can click in and find where that task is. You can see that's today's date, and then I click on the home button, it takes me back to my home canvas where I can then have a look at anything else. So I'm going to zoom in on the make time section. This is the week section that Jeff shows. I'm going to click on the icon and now I can change the highlight, or I can change the grateful section or the let go section. I can add any text in and it will add the text to the file. So Tuesday now has great and something in those sections. Then if I go in, you can see I'm hovering over and I can see any of the information inside of those daily notes, or I can click into the calendar. This one I'm going to go last week. There's the tasks that happen every day, but this make time is this week, not last week, so that Tuesday doesn't show, only this Tuesday, this Wednesday. Then for the projects section, I've got a progress bar and I have a date, so I can click on that icon, add a date for whatever the project is. Maybe that's a due date or a to-do date, and you can see I can have as many projects in there as I want, and when I click in, I have tasks, which are automatically fed through the progress bar. So I'm going to middle click on the example project, move it over so you can see both. I click on the task, so now there are 3 tasks completed, so there's 1 left. That's 75%, and the progress bar automatically updates. So first I want to create the workspace, and in this case I'm going to expand the right sidebar, move the tags up a little bit, and then also move the outline up so I have 2 sections, one at the top and one at the bottom on the right, with the backlinks and outgoing links down the bottom right. Then on the left sidebar, move the starred pane down the bottom, leaving me with the files and folders and search top left. Now I'm going to make some folders: journal, daily folder inside of journal, notes, templates, and then a dashboard file. Next, I'm going to go to the settings in the bottom left, community plugins, and turn on community plugins. Browsing for the first plugin I'm going to install, which is the calendar community plugin. I'm going to install this and enable this, and what this will let me do is navigate between the daily journal notes very easily using a calendar view. Now in the settings you can change these, look for words per dot, so there's a dot on the day for the amount of words you put in a note. I'm going to change the start week to Monday. I'm going to remove the confirm before creating a note because I don't want that, and then leave everything else the same. Now in the right sidebar I have a calendar icon and a calendar, which when I click on a day will create a daily note. And this will work for any other day inside the calendar view. Now when I go to the settings, I want the daily notes to be made in a certain folder. So I'm going to go to the Daily Notes core plugin, leave the date format the same because it's just easier, and then change the file location to Journal Daily. Now I do want to put a template in, but we don't have one yet. It's only showing the 2 files I've made. So I'm going to go to the templates folder, new file, name it Daily Template because I'm really original. Then what I want to do is add information into this that I want in every daily note. So a journal section, a header, and a task section in a header. So all of the tasks that happen every day will go underneath tasks, and Jeff has 4, so we put those in. And then we have information, like property information from Notion, goes in the YAML, front matter, or metadata at the top of the file. So 3 dashes, and then inside that, I want to add a daily tag. Then I'm going to add the other properties that Jeff has in his database: highlight, colon, then grateful, colon, and these are basically the same thing as Notion database properties, but the properties aren't just at the top of the page. You can have them inside the page or inside the file as well, which we'll do later on. So the next plugin I'm going to install, community plugin, is Dataview. And Dataview basically lets you query everything. So unlike Notion, where you need different databases for different things, Obsidian is just one database really, because you're querying all of the files using Dataview. Now, I'm going to also install Metadata menu, and this is another plugin that works with Dataview, so you need Dataview installed first. But this allows you to edit information, like you would in Notion, in a Dataview query, which I'll show you later on. So, I'm going to create another folder, class, and this is for the metadata menu settings, essentially. So, going into the settings, file settings, selecting the folder, class, and then I'm going to change this to class, which we won't get to in this video. If you want to know more, I'll leave a link at the top of the video on the right, but we're going to create a new file inside that class folder. And this daily file is like the settings for any file that has a daily tag. So it's like a template file almost. And when we go in, you'll see there's the Dataview query of all of those daily files. We don't have any at the moment. I'm going to map it with the tag to make sure that every daily tag has all of these settings. Now, this daily note doesn't have the tags, so if we go into the daily notes plugin, then add the template file location, because we added that daily template, we just need to make sure that it's using it, delete the file. Then when we go to the calendar, we can create that file again, so the 31st. Now we've got all that templated information, and we have that tag in there. So when we go back to the daily class, so the settings for every daily note, and click on the icon, we get the table view, and the table view shows what's in the file just in a different way, and you can see we've got the daily note and the daily template. Both of them are in the daily class. Now, going into that file class fields, this is like editing the property information for Notion. We've got the highlight property, and I can make this as specific as I want, a select property, multi-select, date, but I'm just going to leave it as input, so just like a text property, and I'm going to do the same for the other things inside the daily class. So remember, we've got grateful, add any value, and when we go onto the icon next to the file, I can edit that information. And when we go to the daily file, what it actually looks like is all of this code gobbledygook, but we don't really need to know what that means because we push buttons instead. So pushing on the icon next to the daily note, click on edit, I can add something. And that's going to add something to the daily note inside of the property YAML information. I personally use a canvas because it's far more flexible than anything you're going to see inside of Notion, and I'm going to call this home. It's just a file inside of my folders like every other file in Obsidian, and what I'm going to do is drag a card into the canvas, and I'm going to select the dashboard file, the one we made at the start, and now it's showing everything inside of that file in the canvas. I'm also going to map out everything else because I can't remember what Jeff's got in his Notion. So let's put the weather widget at the top. This is just a blank card. There's no file associated with it. It's just something for mind mapping essentially. And then I'm going to do the same on the right side because Jeff likes to organize things manually. I think that's a Notion thing because in Obsidian it's easier, but I'll leave this here so you can just treat it like a brain dump of putting things on, moving things up and down, ticking things off, lists, etc. But the dashboard file, I actually want it to show something. I want it to be the weekly view that you see inside of Notion. So we're going to go into the dashboard file by double-clicking on the file name, make a heading, make time, because that's the section that Jeff's got. I'm going to do 3 backticks, and it's going to automatically create a code block. I'm going to put Dataview at the top, and this is going to query or search everything in my Jeff Notion vault and show it in a table view. Now, I don't want to see everything in the make time view. I only want to see things from the journal. So from, then in speech marks, journal. And that's the folder it's going to look for. Now, because I'm doing the voiceover now, I actually forgot that I don't need to add this bit in, but we use it later on anyway. And what this is doing is adding a filter where something contains, so the file name contains, and then template. And the exclamation mark is like not. So make sure it doesn't contain template in the file name, which in this case we don't really need, but the daily template means it's not going to show. So we've just got the one daily template file. Now, this is great, but what about the things that are last week and next week? And I don't want to see everything at once. And what Jeff has inside of Notion is an archive tick box, but I don't want to manually do that, so I'm going to get this to do it for me. I'm going to add a where clause or a filter, date format, file.day, so it's going to look for the day format of a file, so look at the date, and I'm going to format it in a week format. Now, you don't really need to know what this means, but it's KKK's year, W is week, and that's the format text you need to know, and that means it's going to look for the format of the file in a week version, so it's going to look for what the week is, and I need to see, does it equal this week? So I'm going to do the same thing, date format, date, but now instead of the file, I want to see if it equals today. So date bracket today. I'm then going to make sure the date formats are compared the same, so I need to put KKKK dash www in as well to make sure the formats are being compared the same, and if they are equal, then it will show. If it's not equal, it won't show. So the 31st is today, so it's obviously this week. But if I make the 24th, using the calendar, then go back to the dashboard, the make times section, you can see it's only showing the 31st, because the 24th isn't in this week. But if I make the 30th, well, now that's this week, so it's going to show. And you can see in the canvas, it's showing the query. But I don't want to say file, I wanted to say days. So I'm going to remove that column, so without ID, get rid of the first column, and I'm going to make the column again. But in this case, I don't want the date, I want it to actually tell me what day it is. So I'm going to say link, file.path, to make sure I can click it and it takes me to the file. Then date format, so I'm going to change what it looks like, use the file day, because I want it to be the same, and then I'm going to format that in days, which is 4 C's. So it's going to make a link to each daily note called the day. So Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, Friday, whatever the day is, which means I get a dynamic Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then when it goes to next week, it just refreshes and I don't have to click anything. But I'm personally going to sort this, so sort file.day and then ascending, because I want Monday at the top and then Sunday down the bottom, descending's the opposite, and order it the way you want. So going to the calendar, let's add in Thursday. It's using that template. Go to the dashboard and you can see Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Now I want to narrow this, so right click, make time, and now it's just showing me that header section, just the make time header section of dashboard. But I also want to see all the other information, so I'm going to go into the query and add some columns to the table. So add the highlight information, add the grateful information, and add the let go information. And this is going to add each of these property types as columns to the table. And you can see there's the highlight, grateful, and let go, and it shows it in the canvas. You can see there's no Wednesdays, so I'm going to go to the calendar, just create the Wednesday file. It's inserted all of the information automatically because of the template, and you can see there's the information there. I'm now going to zoom in to just this card, click on the icon, and then I can edit any information from there. So I'm going to click on edit, and let's say I'm grateful for YouTube, because that's where you're watching this, and it's going to add grateful to that file. You can see it's on Monday, there's grateful, and it will actually be in the Monday file when you go there. So if I close these two sidebars, I want this canvas to be my dashboard. I want it to be where I go. But how do I do that automatically? I need community plugins. So I'm going to install the Workspace Plus, and this will let me save a workspace and add a hotkey to it. And you can add a hotkey to literally everything in Obsidian, but I'm not going to use a hotkey because I want to push buttons. So we're going to add the commander, because I think that would be easier for those using Notion moving over to Obsidian than having to remember all the hotkeys. But to use Workspaces Plus, we need to have the core plugin active. So activate the core plugin, Workspaces, then go back to the Workspaces Plus just to make sure everything is working. You can change the settings, but I'm going to keep it all default for now. Go to the left ribbon, manage Workspace Layout, and save this one as home. Now I can load this through the button on the left I can go to the bottom right and use the Workspace Plus window and go to any workspace that I've saved. I could also go to the settings, so bottom left, then go to the hotkeys, type in the name of the workspace or type in workspace, and you can then add or customize the hotkey that you have for anything on your keyboard. But what I'm going to do is go to Commander and go to the ribbon section, which is the bar on the left. Search for that hotkey or the command. I'm going to select it. Now I want it to be home, so I'm going to look for the home icon, remove all the stuff at the start because I don't want that to be in the hover, save, and now we've got the home icon. At the moment it's the default color, so let's change this to green to make it easy. And now when we click out, I can click on the home button and it will take me home. And if I go into any file, I can click on home and it takes me back to that canvas workspace. If I open up sidebars or move things around in sidebars, I click on home and it takes me back to that space. Now I want to add some other sections for Jeff's Notion, so I'm going to Control, click, drag, and it's just copying the card. So I've copied it 3 times, one for the projects and one for the tasks, which Jeff has inside of Notion, and I'm just going to reorganize this because I want it to look sort of nice. I'm going to change the color, so let's change this to a blue and then just make this the same. Let's make this one, these are tasks, so red, a little bit more serious, and you can see they're all going to the same section, the same heading in the same file. But I want a project section and a task section, so I'm going to create a heading, hash space, and then projects, and hash space and tasks. That's the markdown syntax for headings. This is the same in Notion. And now inside of tasks, I could use Dataview, but there's actually a plugin that's better for tasks, and it's a really original name called Tasks. There was a recent update as well to Tasks, which has made this extremely powerful, but I'm not going to go real deep because we're going to keep this nice and simple. The statuses add so much. I'll leave a link to that video in the top right, but we're going to use the backticks, so a code block, and this time type tasks not done. And it's looked and found every single task inside of the vault. So all of those tasks from all those daily notes are now being shown. I can then edit the task name, the priority. This is all done through the plugin. I can add recurring tasks, which Notion you have to do stupid amounts of properties for. Due date, schedule date, start date, future dates. Adds a status, which is a new thing. But as you can see, that's a lot of tasks, so I'm going to filter down. I want it to be due date is today, because I just want today's tasks in this query, and because I know the due date is today, I don't need to see it, so hide due date, and I want to sort it by priority. So I can actually sort the tasks inside the query, whereas in Notion's tables, you can't. You'd need a property and then sort it that way, and then you'd have to go and edit the properties, and it's a faff. So let's go to the 31st, and you can see nothing's showing because there's no due dates on those tasks, which means we need to add due dates to the tasks when they're created with the template. And I'm going to use Templater, a community plugin for that, because it gives me more flexibility than the core one. Now, when I go in, I can add the due date to the task using the autocomplete selection, but because this is a template, I want it to automatically put today's date or the date that I created that file for. And I'm going to use a little bit of code. I'm going to use the smaller than % to open up Templater and say, Templater, do something. Moment, tp.file.title. So it's going to look at the title of the file, which these are daily notes, so it'll have a date in them. Then format that date in the same format that it already is, so it's consistent, which means it's going to essentially put the date of the day next to the task. So it doesn't matter if you've made it 7 days in the future, it's going to be the appropriate date for that task. And you can see the 4th of February is the date on the task. But I'm going to highlight, so shift, right click, delete all those files so I don't have to go in and manually change all those tasks. Click on the 31st, and you can see the 31st is the date that's been added next to make time, because that's all templated, so it's automatic. I don't have to worry about it. Now when we go to the home, you can see all those files have gone, but it's still showing Tuesday. Now, I want to change the tasks to the task section, so right click, heading, tasks, and now all of those tasks are being hidden except from the one with the due date. Now, inside the template, I'm just going to do a copy paste for all the 4 tasks that happen in the daily template. And then I'm going to delete the one that I've already got, just recreate it, purely because it's faster. I could manually do it, but I'm lazy. So now when I go to the home dashboard, we've got those 4 daily tasks in task section for today. And I don't really like all of these links showing everything, so I'm going to get rid of that or change it very slightly. So I'm going to go to the appearance settings, click on the folder to make sure there is a folder, and I'll open it up in my system. You can see snippets, .obsidian, Jeff Notion. That's where this entire vault is. Use VS Code, which is a free install. Go to the folder, open up my Jeff Notion folder, and what this means is I'm looking at all of the files inside VS Code, which is one of the benefits of Obsidian. You can look at Obsidian through any app that reads Markdown, really. And I'm going to make a .css file, call it task so I know what it is, and then copy and paste some stuff in. I'll leave links in the description below if you actually want this. Save it. Then when I come out of VS Code, you can see there's the task file, and I'm going to refresh that in Obsidian, activate it or enable it, and now when I look at the task, it shows me a link. It doesn't show me the path of where that task was or where it is in the file. It just shows me a link which I can hover over and see everything in the file. I still have the edits, so let's add the medium priority and high priority, and because it's sorted, it's going to change the order of those tasks, high priority being at the top, medium being next, and then no priority. So we also have a today section from Jeff's Notion. Now, Jeff does this manually, which you could do in that card I've got on the home board, but you could just copy and paste the task query and then change today to tomorrow. So any task that is tomorrow, which you change wherever and whenever you want, will then show. So if we create a tomorrow daily note and go back, you can see all those tasks in tomorrow's daily note are now showing for tomorrow because that's when they are due. So going back home, you can see all the tasks for today and all the tasks for tomorrow, and that will be the same for all due tasks for those days. But I did notice Jeff likes natural language dates inside of Todoist, and of course Obsidian has a plugin for that, so I'm going to install the plugin, enable the plugin, and this works very well with the task plugin and quick add. I know Jeff uses Todoist to add things quickly, but when you're inside of Notion, you can push plus inside of a database, and you have to add all those properties, and that was a friction point Jeff mentioned with adding things through Thomas Frank's setup. But here, you can see I've added a new task, it's a capture, and I've added that choice, and what I'm going to do is make it go, so add the task to the daily note. So it's going to be in the journal folder, daily folder, and then I want to add some template information in, and because I'm doing a voiceover, I know those brackets are wrong. They should be curly brackets, which I'll change later. I'm going to create file if it doesn't exist, because I want to make sure the tasks are stored in the day that they've been created, not that they are due. I want it to use the template that we've made to make sure everything is consistent, so template, daily template. I also want the tasks to be added under the task section. So insert after, hash, space, and then task, because that's the heading. And what I'm going to do is actually create a capture format, which means when I push the button or add the hotkey or select how to use the quick add, there's lots of different ways in Obsidian, it brings up some pop-up windows. So I don't have to remember where to put things or click, I just type away. So add the task markdown syntax, which is a line, square brackets, then add value. So it's going to ask me something. I'm going to name this task name. So I'm going to get a pop-up box that says task name, and I need to add a value. So type something. I'm going to add another value because I want a pop-up box for the priority of the task, and these are emojis. So for me, on Windows, I use Windows full stop to bring up the emoji menu and then add the emojis in, making sure there is a space because a blank priority exists. Then I'm going to add the calendar emoji because that is the due date emoji. I'm going to add the date, so a value for the date. I want it to say due date so I know what I'm putting in because I'm adding the due date, and it's going to be formatted again in that default format, year, month, day. This is just making things far easier. And then I'm also going to add a / and n, and that's basically going to move the cursor to the next line so we don't get task and task and task all on the same line. I'm going to click the lightning because I want it to be a hotkey or a command, and you can see I can search for that. I can add the hotkey, but very much like the home workspace, I'm going to add it, but this time to the tab bar through Commander. I'm going to search for task. There's the 2 commands from the task plugin, but I want the quick add. I'm going to look for a plus icon, get rid of the quick add because I don't need to know it's quick add. And I'm also going to change the color probably to green again because it's just obvious that it's different. Now in the top right, you can see new task and I can click it. But as I said earlier, I got the brackets wrong first time, so I want to add the curly brackets. So it automatically looks for the date and adds that in. You can see at the top. So push the button. Due date box, natural language dates, let's say in 2 days, and it's going to make it 2 days. The task name is a test, and the priority is, let's put low. So it's going to create that task. It's not showing though, and that's because even though the due date is the 2nd, it's been added today. So test, and then the due date is the 2nd, low priority. So when it is Thursday, it will then show in the today's section. For recurring tasks, it's basically the same thing, but the way recurring tasks work inside of Notion using the task plugin is when you tick it off, it creates one. So I'm going to create a section down the bottom that says recurring. Let's go meeting, recur, every week. Let's say on Monday. Yeah, let's go on Monday. And what this means is it's going to recur this task every Monday. But I need a date for it to recur to, so put a due date, let's say Monday, and now it's going to recur on every Monday. But as you can see, the tasks aren't showing it because it's not Monday, which means I need a query for next Monday to prove it's worked. So let's just quickly create a query, go underneath here, go 3 backticks to make a code block, tasks, not done, and then I want it to be due date next Monday. Now it's showing me that recurring task, and if I tick it off, you can see it's ticked. I've got a completed date next to it, and it's recreated automatically that task for next Monday, which is the 13th. Now, if you want to do the tasks, or quick capture, or links, or lists, or links to files, links to pages, links to any views or anything inside of Obsidian, you can do that inside of this other things card. I personally use something called a brain dump. You can see a video of my vault at the top right, but you can see all the normal markdowns available. You can add lists, and even when you add a task, the task plugin still works. So you can still add the due date, the start date, schedule date, recurring task, whatever, all inside of here, and then they will show inside the query on the left. But we still need to put some projects in here. So let's go into the dashboard page. We've got the projects heading already there, and because we're looking for files, not tasks, I'm going to use Dataview. Going to make a table, and with the table I'm going to search for things. In this case I'm going to use a tag. You could use a folder, there are lots of other options. I'm going to make it simple, so a project tag, where again this is going to be getting rid of a file that contains the name template, because the project template is obviously going to have the project tag in it, but I don't want it to show in upcoming projects because it's a template file. And then I'm going to sort the projects in date order, in ascending order, so I want a project template. And in this case, I also want a class, because I want some settings so I don't have to always go through and edit and stuff. So the same thing as the daily note, go in, click the icon, file class settings, map with tag, save, file class fields, and this is the projects fields. So we want a status, and having a look at Jeff's template, I can see Jeff has a not done, done sort of status list. So accept a single value from a list is just like a select property inside of Notion, to do, done, blah, 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 all the way through. And I also noticed Jeff has a on hold option, so we'll add that in, click done, and you can see there's the status. We also, with projects, want a date. So I'm going to add date, and you guessed it, there is a accept a date option. I'm going to use the same default format because it's already there, it's nice and easy, save, and now these are two options that will appear in any file that has project. And you can see there's the settings if you want to see the gobbledygook, but I never look at that. Now, when we go to the notes folder, I'm going to create a new folder. I would imagine Jeff has a content folder and maybe some work projects. I don't know. I'm going to leave it with content. And then we're going to make a project template. Very similar to the daily template, same process. And in Notion, this would be your template inside of a database, but Obsidian is just a folder. So tag project, because that's the name of the class we've made. Jeff then also has a research page inside of Notion and a requirements page inside of Notion. I'm just going to put them as headers. You could have them as files if you want, but headers are just easier, and you can jump up and down with the outline plugin in Obsidian, something Notion doesn't have. But then we're going to click on the icon because we're already in the class, and I'm going to add to do to the template. I also want to add the date property, so I can add it in 3 different ways. I'm just going to add it at the top. I'm going to leave it empty because this is a template and I want to make the date specific to the project that we've made, not always defaulted to something. And now when I go to content and I make a new file, I can then add the template. I'm going to add the template using the ribbon, but you could make it hotkeyable, you could make it automatic, you could make it with a commander button like I showed you earlier. There are loads of different options depending on how you want to or how you choose to add a project. So let's just change this to an example so we know what's going on. And now when we go to the dashboard, you can see example is being shown inside of the query, but there's no columns. So even though we've made them in the page, there's nothing being shown in the query. So I'm going to do the same thing we did before without ID to remove the file, and I'm going to add it again. So file.link as, and then let's call this projects because these are projects. So we've now renamed that first column, and then we want a status column. So it's going to look for all the status information. And I also noticed Jeff has a progress bar. It's a complicated formula inside of Notion, and it's kind of the same in Obsidian. You just make a progress bar, and it shows inside of the query. So we're going to use inline metadata this time, using 2 colons next to the word. And progress bars can be done in loads of different ways. I've actually used a progress bar from someone in the Obsidian Discord community. Davos is really helpful. I hope I've pronounced that right. And there will be loads of help all over the Obsidian Discord for whatever progress bar you want to make. What we're doing is we're adding all the tasks together, looking for the completed ones, look for the non-completed ones, find a percentage, times by 100, the same thing you do in Notion, and then I'm just adding in some text afterwards to tell me how many tasks I have left. So now when I go to the example file and add the template, you can see there's the progress bar. Now, NaN, obviously, there's no task, so it can't tell you a percentage on nothing. So let's add a task, let's say in 7 days. And it's going to show me 7 days into the future because that's the autocorrect. Now when I click on, this is just to refresh it quicker, we've got 1 task left and 0% because we haven't completed anything. Then when we go to the home canvas dashboard, we can narrow the heading, narrow to projects. Now we're showing just that Dataview query, and you can see there's the percentage. We've got 1 task left. So I'm going to open up the file, and I'm going to actually move it over so just so it's next to the home space so we can see what's going on. We've got 1 task. If I add another task, so 2, 3, 4, you can see in the canvas, the formula is actually changing quicker because it's rendering it. In the file, it's a little bit slower. So we've got 4 tasks left. I tick 1 off. The percentage bar goes to 25 because 25%, and then second one, now it's 2 out of 4, so that's 50%, and that will then change inside the canvas. You can see in file, it's a little slow because you need to actually render it again. But anyway, next up is Indify. So this is the weather widget, basically the same principle. Copy the link, paste it in Obsidian. But Obsidian doesn't render it like Notion does, because Notion does some stuff on the back end, which is this. So it adds an iframe, adds width and height information, and uses the source, which is just the link to the Indify widget, and then we can readjust the card size so we can see what's going on, and then move it around because we're in a canvas. Now you could actually use the website and put a website inside of a canvas because it works dynamically, but anyway. I'm using the full calendar plugin to replicate the content calendar Jeff very briefly shows in the video. I'm going to say month view, day, start on Monday. You can add recursive event folders, but we'll leave that for another time. I'm going to add a daily note calendar, and I want the events to be inside the journal. So whenever you add an event to the calendar, it will show inside the journal page, and when you move it, it will then move it through the daily notes. I also want to make a full note calendar because that's going to be the content calendar, because I want loads of information on it, like a page inside of Notion. So I'm going to save that, and that is a content calendar. Now when we go to the ribbon, go down the bottom, open full calendar, we have the month view, because that's what we had in the settings. Click on a day, add an event, it's in the daily note calendar, and just save, and you can see it's purple. Now when I click and I can go in and make this a content calendar file, and now I'm going to leave this all day, save it, and it's going to be red because that's the color that we had inside of the settings. Going to the week view, something Notion doesn't do very well, I can drag the event down, change the time. I'm going to leave the content one where it is. When I go to the home canvas, it's not going to show on the task because it's not a task, it's an event. If I go into the daily note, you can see there's the name of the event, there's the start time, there's the end time. So you have a calendar you could use if you wanted, but for the content calendar, I'm going to open the sidebar. So that was the command palette, Control P or Command P. Move around my sidebar, so make some space down the bottom, add the full calendar, and you can see there's today. There's the event. I can click on it, change the information, open the file, all from the sidebar, which is really nice. But if I go to the right, content, you can see I can then open the note, change the information, and when I click in it, you can see there's the property information. That's for the full calendar to work. Date, all day, title. Let's add the project template. And you can see it's got a bit of quirky stuff, but we can fix this depending on which way you would want to use it. If you want to use the plugin, there are so many different options, but this is just a proof of concept.